I am. But it's an organization that's a grouping of NGOs, and we're very happy for any NGO that is not a member of the Council of Organizations to join it. And there's a sign-up sheet for that. This program is typical of what the Council of Organizations does, which is programs in collaboration with its member organizations and other networks. And we have some wonderful networks that are here with us today. The Congo Committee on Sustainable Development from New York, and their chair, Margot Lazaro. Margot, can you just show, and so we can thank you for contributing to this effort. The NGO DPI Executive Committee, which represents all 1,800 some odd of us at the United Nations. We have some wonderful people from NGO Relations. I think I saw Hawa. How are you here? Thank you, Hawa. We have also a group that has been consistently supportive of us, which is the various chapters of UNA USA here in New York. One is the Southern New York State Division, and the other is the chapter in New York itself. So we're very grateful to have that group with us. And then, of course, on the direct sponsors, we have the wonderful people from the Global Foundation for Democracy and Development, GFDD, to whom we owe all this audiovisual activity and the setup. So many, many thanks to GFDD. So that's if you haven't signed in when you came in, please do so when you go out, so we can include you in future programs. I'd like to turn over this program to the maître of the program, a wonderful lady who's the founder of and is going to lead us through this wonderful presentation from Kitchen Connection, Arlene Cruz.
Thank you all for coming. I really, really appreciate you braving the storm that has come upon us this afternoon for you to be here and celebrate what is UN Day, and obviously everything that it stands for, which is peace. So thank you, and thank you for, again, braving the storm in order to support a bigger mission, which is that of the United Nations. So give yourselves a round of applause for getting up this morning and coming through the rain. Of course, every project begins with a story, and we could probably stay here for an eternity sharing stories amongst ourselves about how we started our own projects. Even if it's a family, every story has a project behind it, and vice versa. And of course, you're all here to learn more about Kitchen Connection and how this came about. It begins in Ghana in 2012 when I'm studying abroad. And after losing my wallet, I think to myself, I'm not going to call home because my family's already against me going. And I don't want to hear, I told you so, because that's usually what I get. Instead, I decided to stay with a host family in Ghana. And they took me into their home. They fed me, they housed me for 5 days. And they didn't ask anything of me in return. Instead, they nurtured me. They literally provided me with anything and everything I needed to survive. And at the end of my time with them, I was thinking to myself, I don't know what ingredients are in this meal that I'm making with them, but it's really great, and I'd love to recreate it at some point. So I'm sitting there on the floor of the living room, and I'm eating with my hands, as is customary in Ghana, and I'm thinking to myself, well, I might not be back here. I may never see them again. I may never have this experience again. But we do have technology. I can always go back home and have a virtual conversation with them. And hey, maybe I can go to my local supermarket and see if I can pick up something similar to this and recreate it with their guidance from my home. And then I can sit on the floor of my living room and eat with my hands and pretend like I'm there. And that was the closest thing to actually traveling back to Ghana. The relationship with them continues. I went back to Ghana. I was a bridesmaid for one of their weddings. One of them is working for Uber now, which is amazing. He basically helped to found Uber. And he wasn't actually an official son. He was an adopted son. So he himself went through a lot of hardship and now has succeeded and has helped me to launch my own project. So it's a cyclical thing. what this world often gives us, and sometimes life tells us what to do. The plan for me was to go to law school and to go and pursue human rights, and I feel like I'm still doing it in a different capacity. We have a platform now called Kitchen Connection, and it connects people to host or participate in live online interactive cooking classes, all with the purpose of connecting people through food, but also as a way for them to start bigger conversation. So it doesn't end at the recipe, it starts at the recipe. Food is a very ubiquitous thing. Whether you have food or you don't, everyone has a relationship with food. And so that's why it's such a beautiful vehicle to actually achieving change. And so I thank you for believing in that power, because obviously you're going to eat, you're going to have this delicious Amlou with Chef Nargisse, who's going to be joining us from Morocco. But you're also here for change and for the power that food has to bring about conversations that are welcome in environments like this. So again, I thank you for being here, and shortly we'll introduce our program. But before we do, I want to bring up a dear friend, Susana Bastarrica, who is here. She is a retired UN staff and is one of the biggest peace advocates that I know in my entire life. So she's going to join us and lead us through a very short meditation, because I think it's very apropos in this day and in this moment. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Distinguished guests, friends and colleagues. It is my honor and my privilege with my friend Arlene, who we met this year. And it was such a momentous transformation for me, because we need inner nourishment and outer nourishment. And extending our cultures through food is one of the most famous things. All of the people gather around the table to exchange nourishment. And this is what we're doing today. So I would like you just to sit comfortable and explore the feelings that connect us together, because there's never a separation within us. There's always some beautiful energy that we emanate and we find in others and in each other's gaze and in nature and all these spices. So deep at the center of my being, there is an infinite well of love. I now allow this love to flow to the surface. It fills my mind, my body, my spirit, and the world across. The more love I have to give, the more I can give, and the supply is endless, and we are that vessel. So I invite you all to look inside of the endless supply of abundance and beauty and joy. Take a deep breath and embrace yourself and everybody here, because you're one in essence for the greater good and the greater power within. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Susanna. Now that we're all zen, I want to continue my gratitude for my team, my wonderful team, Monique, Doris, and Anita, who's somewhere in the back. For my family at Whole Foods, that I don't think is here today. My family at DPI, that is a relatively new family, but so strong, so strong, so strong. My actual biological family is not here today, but they're here, and that means the world. So thank you for being here. Also, I see Yorgos in attendance here. He is one of our biggest Greek supporters. We had an event at Whole Foods focusing on Greece, and we're hoping to do it again. And that's just kind of how this continues. So I hope that you make connections here that are beyond this event, and that it helps to promote your purpose in this life. Our distinguished guest, Ethan Rich, is here, a native New Yorker, but who has traveled the world in search for spices and beauty and passion, and he's here to share it with us. So thank you for coming, Ethan.
Hi. My name is Ethan Ethan. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Burlap and Barrel. We're a direct trade, single origin spice company. So we work with spice farms all around the world and help those farmers figure out how to get direct access to markets in the US and Europe. I'm here to talk about spices for peace and why spices are the ingredient, why spices are the food that we talk about when we talk about peace. First of all, they're ubiquitous. Every cuisine, every culture, every country in the world uses spices in some way, whether that's cinnamon, which is tree bark, or cumin, which is the seed of a flowering plant, or juniper, which is the berry of an evergreen tree. Spices can be any part of the plant. And the more expansive the definition, the more inclusive the cuisines that use spices for all kinds of things. Spices are also an amazing vehicle to look at history and look at trade routes and look at relationships between countries and pre-colonial, colonial, post-colonial, post-colonial, if there is a post-colonial, and think about how countries have in the past and how they continue to engage with each other through food, but also through a commodity that was traded, that was valuable, that is valuable, even though we don't often think about that today. That's why farmers are growing spices, for their value. And finally, because spices as a symbol of how farmers, how entrepreneurs, how people at a fairly grassroots level around the world are working to change their situation. That we have access to incredible technology, whether it's communications technology or transportation technology, that's allowing us to bypass these networks that are still colonial trade networks of finances and the flow of money and the flow of information, which historically have been obstructed intentionally. We were looking at intentionally opaque systems that kept farmers and consumers separate, but now because of communications and transportation technology, we can break down those barriers and use the products that people are growing in Indonesia or Zanzibar or Afghanistan or wherever that we're consuming here, use those ingredients as a way to get to know each other better and think a little bit more about who's at the other end of our food supply chain. So thank you very much. I'm really looking forward to seeing this presentation.
I have to tell you a little secret. Our chef, Nargisse, had an emergency, so she has to fly from London to Morocco today, at this very moment. She is so committed to this, though, that she's at the airport, and she will still be guiding us through this recipe. So let's give her a round of applause for her commitment. And here she is. Nargisse, welcome to our little family here. Our big family, big little family. Say hi. She can see you. Safe travels, everyone says. Happy UN Day. So, Nargisse, we are going to make sure every single person here gets at least a taste of your Amlou recipe. Wow. Okay? And so, in order for that to happen, we are going to recreate your recipe, which we've never done before in true Kitchen Connection fashion. It's as if she was in her kitchen guiding us through this. We're going to recreate it, and then we have delicious bread and apples and different things that will complement the recipe, which is what she recommended we have in advance. So that's how it's going to work. We're a little family here. If you see us doing something wrong that she's telling us not to do, make sure you tell us to stop. Because otherwise, we will have a recipe that is not what she wants us to recreate. Additionally, if you have any questions while this is happening, or you want to get up and actually look at what's going on, feel free. This is not meant to be, one-sided. This is meant to be communal. So walk around, smell. We also have spices here. We're talking about spices, but a lot of people, including myself, don't know what a lot of spices smell like or taste like. So we welcome you to open them. These are from my pantry, and I was like, spices for peace, let me bring them in. So open them, smell them, taste them, do whatever you want to the spices, but be kind. Okay. Without further ado, Nargisse, I know you have to run. You have a flight. We all have been there, I'm sure. But you are here to guide us, and we're very grateful to have you. So thank you. We can hear you. I think maybe we can try putting sound up over there.
I was saying I think I have a good 40 minutes with you guys, so that's great.
Oh, she has 40 minutes with us.
Sorry, everyone, but my kitchen.
It's okay, no worries. Okay, can we all hear her before we start?
Faintly.
Can you put the microphone as a microphone of one of the computers?
Yeah, let's try that. Nargisse, can you try speaking to us so we can make sure we hear you?
Hello? Can you hear me now?
Yes, better.
Yeah,
Okay, I can hear myself.
Okay, so we have
Amazing.
the almonds. I speak Spanish, so I say it like that, almonds, even though I know it's not linguistically correct in English. And we have everything you wanted
So the
us to
almonds
have.
are roasted?
Yes, they are roasted. Where's the
Great.
And we want to show you this argan oil. It's straight from Morocco. Wow. It's from a co-op in Morocco that we're supporting. We got it sponsored, but a bottle like this in the US is like $200. So we're using the very best for you today, and it's healing in every way. I use it on my face, on my hair. Funny story, this is actually something that I gifted my mother, and the one that we're getting sponsored is on its way, so I was like, Mom, I need it back. So this is my mother's. But face, hair, body, it's fantastic, and I'm sure the ladies will tell you more. But yes, this is what we're using. Okay, you're the star, go for it.
Alright, well I think your brand of almonds would be great for everyone. Maybe if you can pass on the bottle so they can smell the argan oil and they can sense how nutty it is and fragrance, so they can make the difference between any other oil. I think that would be great.
Yeah, sure. So we have one that's a little limited here. Maybe we can pour some in here, and then the rest.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Okay. You can smell this. We'll start this way. Sure.
Yeah, it depends how powerful the blender is.
Orange is like
Yes, the day I come here. And you can speak to her directly. Oh, this is cool. Can you say hi? Oh, this is so cool. So can you tell us about the dish that we're creating right now? What is it? Where does it usually go on?
Okay, so I'm making Amlou. Amlou is, if you want to compare it to maybe the American equivalent of peanut butter, it's a brown paste that's made of roasted almonds, brown, that you mix with honey and argan oil. And Moroccans usually eat it for breakfast with bread, and they dip the bread in the Amlou. Or they eat it with Moroccan pancakes, like bahia or sambal. And it's something you mainly eat for breakfast, Moroccans mainly eat for breakfast or for the afternoon. So that's the traditional way of doing it. But I love to be creative with food, and I love to use my Amlou in so many different ways. One of my favorite ways is with cheese and apples and bread.
Again, who asked the first question. Hey,
You know, I was struck by the fact that the oil itself was in a plastic bottle rather than glass. Just from a chef's perspective and food safety and non-rancidity, no rancidness perspective. Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I mean, if you ship it to Morocco and you could justify it saying that plastic is lighter than glass, or that it's safer, that you're not going to break the bottle of like a glass rather than plastic. But I think it's. I mean, when I buy my article in Morocco, it's always in a glass bottle.
And environmental.
But I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it makes such a big difference in terms of safety.
Or environmental.
I think it's a good point from a food perspective, from an environmental perspective. I must say,
Sorry.
oh, no worries. I must say I spoke with the producer, the exporter directly, and arranged the shipment and everything. And I do think that weight is a concern because of the shipment. And I do know that it's in a relatively remote area of Morocco, so maybe even getting enough glass to ship or to store could be a challenge, although I do agree that it's absolutely better to have it preserved in glass, in a dark glass actually. Yeah, okay. So we'll proceed with our recipe here. It's looking like something I've seen in the grocery store, which I think is a good sign. What do you think, Nargisse?
I think it looks good.
Like,
I think it tastes good.
well, in exchange, we're going to have someone from the crowd taste it. Who wants to volunteer? Andrea? I saw your hand shoot up. She's like, I have to. Okay, if you can, come around this way. We're going to have Andrea taste the halfway done Amlou. And she is a chef, actually. Andrea has her own restaurant in Brooklyn. She's Venezuelan. And so she will be very critical, I'm sure. Please tell us. Please tell us what you think.
We're missing those pancakes for the bread. This is great.
Maybe the salt. Honey and the salt? Okay. Thank you, chef. We will add the honey and the salt. Okay. And so while we proceed, I'm going to refresh our page here and also introduce Nada Tahiri, who is in Morocco at the moment. She's a women's rights expert. She's focusing on women's rights in her master's. And she's with us here to talk a little bit more about the co-ops in Morocco, mainly run by women. And these are the women who are often doing the manual labor, producing this. So she's going to share her knowledge and her expertise from a sustainability perspective and from a women's rights perspective. You have the floor.
Thank you very much.
So thanks, William.
Thank you. And come smell spices if you're not eating, so that you can